Opinions and ideas expressed in the following Moraine Valley Broadcast Channel recording are those of its creators and do not represent the views of Moraine Valley Community College.
Hi, welcome to Sweet Talk. I'm Devin.
I'm Noelle.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Nafisa.
Today we are going to be discussing the various types of discourse regarding the obesity crisis. A basic definition of discourse, in my opinion, is discourse is kind of tricky to define because it shapes all the acts of communication on a topic. Let's start by talking about academic discourse.
Academic discourse has the most evidence to support it, and when one of the articles was the Global Energy Balance Network. It is an organization that promotes promotes exercise to balance how much you eat and drink. This organization was ran by scientists that are directly funded by Coca-Cola. Stephen N. Blair, the group's vice president, says that, they're eating too much, blaming fast food, blaming sugary drinks, and so on. And there is really no compelling evidence that is the cause.
I think the academic point of view is kind of, there's a lot of evidence to support it, and that it's basically the food industry's fault. In their opinion, it's not funded by the food industry. It's kind of an outsider perspective, and there's no, linkage between personal responsibility and obesity in the academic part of, the discourse and the obesity crisis.
I think that it's the most reliable, academic discourse. It's the actual research and the evidence.
Yeah, they have scientists that know what they're doing and looking for.
This article specifically, I feel like, makes it hard to trust scientists and to trust people because you don't know who's funding them and you don't know who's behind it all.
Also, the researchers don't have a conflict of interest. They're not being paid by the food industry.
And they barely have any funding, which is why their points of view aren't the ones that you really read about. Also, doctors have, the academic part is also the doctors in this, naming it a disease, which actually needs treatment, and all the research behind that is linked to the food industry.
Well, when an average person hears, the scientists came up with this, we obviously think that they're smarter than us and they have more logic behind their credibility and everything, so they would just assume that they're right and take their side on it.
I would agree. Going into the political view on the topic, as of right now we have food regulations to certain chemicals and amounts, such things that can be put into our foods, and the article study tied to food industry tries to discredit sugar guidelines. It talked about undermining the sugar guidelines just to do a fake study for marketing. In my opinion, the government should have their own team of research, not linked to the food industry. There's talk of taxing snack foods, sugary drinks, and just getting rid of them altogether in schools, because a lot of the crisis is coming from, children now.
Yeah, I feel like there should only be vending machines in school that has, water and Gatorade, and there should be no vending snack machines, I feel, in schools. There should only be vending machines for drinks that
even
are just
here.
Water and Gatorade.
In our school, we even have vending machines at every corner. And now they're, in the one article about the tobacco, it even says, is fat the next tobacco? Is the government going to have to take action on fat, limiting that like they limit tobacco now? Taxing it higher, making it less available.
The food industry's just going to turn that around and say that the government's saying, taking away our privacy and everything. Yeah. So they're going to twist every story that it is to help with the obesity crisis.
With what you said about them, the schools, the food in the schools, I think that the food industry is definitely targeting the younger kids and the popular community people.
I think the government's really going to have to step in and put some laws on that because, they know the truth, but they just aren't facing it. Also, I think that has to do with the economy as well.
Yeah, the jobs.
They're brainwashing the majority of people.
I would agree. And going into the popular discourse of what most people really think, what do you guys have an opinion on that?
Well, let's look at the actual definition of popular discourse. Popular discourse is what people are saying about a topic. Let's look at examples of popular discourse from the Dear Fat People video by Nicole Arbor. It's solely based on her point of view on the obesity crisis. Her view is from an outsider perspective. In other words, she's on the outside looking in. Also, keep in mind that she's a YouTube blogger, and she has to say what will most interest her fans. So she has an incentive to increase her ratings and popularity. She sends a message making an argument that being obese is a self-responsibility, but the evidence of academic discourse proves clearly that obesity is not a self-responsibility at all. And in The Weight of the Nation, the interviewees were talking from an insider perspective. That means they have firsthand personal experiences that Nicole didn't.
Yeah, I would agree with that the public really thinks that people are just lazy, and they believe what the food industry is putting out there, and they think that, overweight people have, they're allowed to go in front of lines, they're allowed to take, the shopping carts and just kind of ride around, when really that's not it. It's kind of, debilitating to them.
It's an actual disease, and a lot of people don't realize that. They just think that they're lazy, self-responsibility. You decided to eat that burger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
With the video, I think that she didn't really ask any positive questions. She didn't ask, how does it, did you exercise today? Did you eat well? Did you do this? But they just asked, how do people look at you? And negative things. They're not gonna say positive things if you keep asking them negative questions.
Yeah, I feel like with the video with Nicole, she literally just shoved all the information down your throat, and it was so much to take in, and she was just so in your face about how she doesn't like fat people,
And imagine
but she
body
still cares
shaming
for them.
Imagine being an overweight person listening to that, how that would make you feel. And I think in the video Stigma that we watched, that really shows their point of view of how they feel about listening to this, what people have to say. And moving on from that, the biggest one is the discourse in the food industry.
Yeah, the food industry is a major cause of why the U.S. is obese. 2/3 of the U.S. population is overweight or obese, and obesity rates in children are rising at 3 times the rate of increase in adults. I read an article that shows the similarities between the tobacco industry and the food industry. It's an academic article, so it's very credible on what it has to say. There were a bunch of very good points in the article, and it really opened up my eyes about what the food industry is doing to us. The major food companies are putting the blame on everyone else by they're focusing that personal responsibility is the reason people are obese. 2, if the government got involved, our personal freedom will be sacrificed for it. 3, emphasize physical activity over diet, which is completely wrong, and there's no studies that show that that's correct. 4, they say that there's no good or bad food, so no food should be targeted as being bad or that it should be changed. And lastly, to cover for the food industry, they plant doubt in consumers and people when bad things are brought up about the food industry.
Yeah, I would agree with that because, they fund all these fake studies that have no real evidence behind them, and they say, diet drinks help you lose more weight than water, which I find it hard to believe how people even can believe that to a certain extent.
They're definitely creating a big lie, and everyone, the majority of people are believing it. Mm-hmm. They're brainwashing other people to believe that Gatorades and organic foods are healthier, but they're not actually.
Yeah. I feel like all the points that they make are completely wrong, like how they say that
they have no evidence to support any of their
that
claims.
Physical activity is you got to do more exercise and then diet, when really that's completely wrong. It's more about the diet than it is what you're exercising.
Then they created this lie of saying that you have to have an energy balance. You guys are gaining so much weight because you guys are not exercising. Mm-hmm. You guys are watching too much TV. You guys are sitting down too much. But really, when you look at the evidence of academic discourse, it's all in the diet.
There's even a slogan that Dr. Hill said in one of the articles, move more, eat smarter.
Yes.
Which is, there's no evidence to support that. That's just what the food industry wants. Like Sam said, the balancing energy. And do you guys have any, about the arguments relating all the food industry to the other types of discourse?
I think the food industry is majorly taking over every aspect of the discourse and what's going on with the obesity crisis.
Yeah, because they're hiring scientists, which were part of the academic. They're hiring, highly regarded scientists that are really well known for them. They're paying them millions.
Average people don't know any better than to assume that they know what they're talking about. So they're not going to look into it. They're just going to assume that they're right and carry on and go with that opinion.
Yeah, they listen to the well-known scientists. I mean, that's what I would do too if I didn't know any better.
The food industry is so hard to attack because unlike the tobacco industry, it's just cigarettes, but with the food industry, it's fast food, it's grocery stores, it's chips, it's pop, it's candy. There's all different companies and brands and different varieties of bad food for you, and whereas the tobacco, it's just one thing that you could target. So no one is able to target all of these different companies.
Yeah, and then what about that Dr. Evil claiming that obese people are? He's just creating the thing, what they're saying about energy balance, and it's not true.
I would agree with all you guys. So to close up this podcast, thanks for listening to Sweet Talk. Hope you enjoyed our short and sweet podcast. Again, I'm Devin.
I'm Noelle.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Nafisa.